The Sketch-O-Matic Show.
After a little break off the podcast, back again with another episode. And this one, ladies and gentlemen, good folks. I have somebody who's not in radio, the radio realm industry per se, but more on the other side of the music industry.
Sketchy.
This man I do not actually know that well. We just literally met about 24 hours ago over Zoom.
Wow.
But because he is in Los Angeles and he's nearby, we were able to connect and him come down and do the pod with me. This is a special one going out to my radio engineers, independent artists trying to get their name out there, trying to get their music played on digital streaming platforms, on podcasts. This is what this episode is going to be basically revolving around and dedicated to those folks in that arena of music and the industry and whatnot.
Oh my God.
My special guest is, I would like to say he is the Mr. In-Between of the music world. He's an A&R, business consultant. He is like the glue that holds ideas and people together. In other words, he's like Mr. In-Between. He is the main frame that people have to go through in order to get their songs recorded. He engineers. Listen, the man is a jack of all trades, and I'm really happy to have him on the Sketch-O Show podcast. Without further ado, Weston McGowen!
Oh my God.
Thank you, Sketch.
How you doing, Weston?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, great to be hanging out here in the studio with you after a long day of work.
Yeah. Pull that mic just a little closer to you, my friend.
How's that?
There we
Does
go.
that sound
That's
good?
what I'm talking about.
All right.
Weston McGowen. Okay, so let's get into the technical title you hold that we were talking off pod per se.
Yeah.
When you said, what was the global?
The Global Music Export Exchange.
Woo, that's a mouthful right there.
I take music where it needs to go.
Okay, explain what that is and reiterate what we basically spoke about over Zoom. It's very fascinating.
Yeah, so basically it's a collaborating center that I founded for the private sector and for the public sector who fund music export and cross-border trade missions for music and bring music into new economies, new commercial opportunities, and, well, help generate more discovery for artists or even taxable dollars for countries.
Yeah.
So there's a pretty vast spectrum of how exportable music is, how important it is to any given country, and how there has to be a lot of back and forth between countries and relationships revolving around creative content and music and how that flows.
Wow. Well, the way you said it flows very nicely.
Thanks.
I can tell you said this quite a bit. When was the last time you were on a podcast explaining or
this is my first one.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
this is my first one.
That's so sweet. This is a Sketch-O Show podcast exclusive.
Thank you.
That's right. Okay. So with the one more time,
Global Music Export Exchange, or musicexport.org.
Is there an acronym for that yet?
GMEX.
GMEX.
That's
GMEX.
Right. GMEX, baby.
That's right. I'm going to go with GMEX.
GMEX.
Okay, so GMEX, how did the idea come about, and what is the main overall, like, how does it operate? Who's involved, and when is this thing going to really take off?
Well, it started as I've always had a really keen interest in international around music. And, I started out managing metal bands, in my late teens.
And you played as well.
I played as well.
Yeah.
And, part of that is like, when you're bringing bands to your country, I was managing a lot of bands ex-North America that were signed to labels like Nuclear Blast, for example, which is a German label. And if we were going to bring those artists into the U.S. for a support tour or anything like that, then you would have visas that you had to work out. So
those are going to be really hard to get now.
Very difficult to get. Yeah. And that's, I've been doing it long enough to where it's very, administration, but, essentially you have to have your stuff really together.
Yeah.
The paper has to be stacked correctly. You have to have show dates every 30 days, at least, from one another if you want to get up to a year for a performer visa. And you can't come over and get paid if you don't have a visa.
Right.
And you could risk being banned for 10 years, for example, and never have a career in the States.
Jeez.
So that was kind of my first, sort of segue into...
By doing that, by helping get visas for the performers coming overseas.
Exactly.
And how difficult and stressful was it then as opposed to the new administration coming in? Not to get too political or election or any of that.
It hasn't changed as much, honestly. I think at the time when I was working more on the touring side of things, I'm very much now kind of a corporate music guy,
but still very cool. Corporate.
Still cool. I'm in the lab and in the studio quite a bit still. But when I was in the van and bouncing around the world with bands, you had to have essentially someone to book out a year of shows. Like, and most artists or managers know, like, if you're going to get a 1 year itinerary for a band, especially an up and coming one, to get the maximum amount of time for a visa, that's really hard to do.
Oh yeah.
So I was moonlighting as a talent buyer in Austin, Texas, where I could essentially just book out a year-long residency for an artist. And then, that was sorted.
That's dope.
So, you find your shortcuts along the way.
And I got so many titles now, Weston. Like, you hold so many, you juggle so many different traits and obligations. But the main one, as we stated at the top, is A&R and Business Operations, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah. So music business infrastructure meets A&R. I have a label and publishing company that is, sort of my pride and joy. It's called Equal Songs. And I founded the company about a year and a half ago with my business partner, Stefan Skarbeck, who's multi-platinum songwriter, producer. And we came together on this idea where I was really sick of working music that I had no creative part in.
Right.
And he was also sick of being extremely creative in music and then not knowing anyone who was working it. Right. And making sure that like the songs would see the light of day
on the corporate side, on the business side.
Corporate
it's
side,
hard.
when you're a producer, you send a record out into the world.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to go from whether or not it's a label record or it's an independent record you're getting paid to do. If you got a piece of the master, maybe you're vested in that record because you didn't take all the cash up front and you've done it with the artist. It's really, for lack of a better term, really out of your hands once it leaves the studio. And that is something that producers, I could probably speak for a lot of them, they'd love to be more a part of. And in the studio, before that, final bounce and before that final print of a song, you'd probably like to have someone come in and say, maybe there's a lane for this if you change that just a little bit.
Yeah, like there's room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. I don't care how big I don't care if you're Taylor Swift. There's always room for improvement. And sometimes those artists don't want to hear that. And you have to almost tread very lightly when presenting a little constructive criticism. Am I right?
You got to read the room, man.
Right.
And, sometimes it could be in the disposition of the artist. You could be walking in and, you pretty much know that your work is cut out for you. There's not going to be really a feedback session there. Or, you're entering the commercial world. And when you have somebody there on the front lines every day sending emails that may or may not get answered, or picking up the phone and calling people, taking people out to lunch.
Yeah, man. You're really greasing the hands and the wheels for the fucking thing to work, to move forward.
You're not supposed to grease the hands.
Right. Maybe not grease the hands. What do I grease?
But, you grease the wheels. You grease the wheels.
Yeah, there you go. I like hands, though. Let's get some greasy hands in there.
We can grease the hands,
I'm sure you've shook some very sweaty palms in your day, right?
There's a lot of people who want an unfair advantage. Unfortunately, those are very short-lived, and a great song is going to work its way up no matter what if you have all of the things working for you. Nice. So if you're obviously taking shortcuts, which, look at streaming now, look at like all of the, topics of streaming fraud and people who bought things. And, that is a pretty like hard game to keep up if your song is no good. So eventually, if you keep pushing that, no one's actually going to be listening, if you stop pushing it. Right. So I think that, great music finds its way to, willing ears
and to the right ears and to the right audience in general. And that's where you come in.
Yeah. So we started this company though, Equal Songs, as kind of like let's hang out in the middle of that Venn diagram of, you in the studio, me on the front lines. And, when things get cooked up to about 70%, I can let you into my 10 to 20% on the other side of this. And we can hopefully be developing stuff that we find a really great start for. And we're not swinging and missing, for these artists who are dumping essentially their whole lives into a career. And misdirection can really fatigue an artist, and it can get really great talent, I guess just fatigued. They don't want to do it.
I don't want to do it. I'm exhausted just hearing about it.
Yeah.
Look, I produce this podcast all on my own. I have nobody helping me. I don't really want anybody helping me. Some people have offered to do, but I have to be completely hands-on. And was it complete autonomy? Is that the correct?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
I'm in total control of this.
You run in your social media, I'm sure.
Yeah,
You're
everything
doing all the
is
marketing.
done by me, and I like it that way. But if it would get bigger, I probably would need help, and I would need a Weston in my corner. I would need somebody with that kind of know-how and how to communicate. Because, look, I didn't graduate from high school, man. I'm going to be honest with you. Not saying I'm dumb, but I knew what I wanted to do at like 16 years old. I went to go work for a record label the day I checked myself out of high school. And I met so many people like yourself at that record label. The way they know how to communicate with people is something I envy. I mean, I'm good at communication and doing podcasting, but when it comes to the business acumen of speaking to somebody who you've never met in a corporate environment, I get a little sketchy there. You see?
Yeah.
So
sketchy.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be here till they fire me. Oh, I just got the future endeavors right now for my VP. Just a sidebar. This podcast was made possible not just by Weston allowing me and lending me his time, but Steve Wall and Doug Reed, correct?
Steve Wall and Doug Reed.
Of Source Audio, or is it only Alpha? Where's Doug at?
It's Source Audio and Alpha Music
and
Libraries.
Alpha Music. Okay, so they're both together.
They are Batman and Robin.
That's right.
Yeah.
So shout out to Steve, shout out to Doug. We had a Zoom meeting, and this whole thing about Weston and the song feeder, which we're going to get into pretty soon. What was the name of your label again? Equal Songs. Equal Songs. The artists that are basically at the top of the list that you're trying to push.
Correct.
We went through all that yesterday, and without Steve and Doug connecting those dots, they were basically your Weston on this one.
They were,
right? They were your Weston.
Those guys are managing me now.
Yeah, man. So, and I hope to get Steve Wall. He's in Seattle. But I will say, for those of you who don't know what the hell I'm talking about, Source Audio and Alpha Libraries are a website and a tool that production and imaging uses across the country for iHeartMedia. And essentially, they provide music beds, songs, sound effects, everything that goes into a production commercial and or imaging basically comes from Alpha Libraries. And without them, a lot of the production we do here at iHeart wouldn't be possible. So I just wanted to make sure I acknowledge them and make sure shine a spotlight, because those guys are really phenomenal. And I don't get to talk to them much. I talk to Steve mainly, but it's, far and in between. And he's always helping me out a lot. He's always looking out for people. And I want to reciprocate and pay it forward by bringing you on and talking about this new venture. So there you go.
Thank you, Sketch.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So let me tell you, in regards to the way you speak and the flow of your words, it surprises me, Weston, that you haven't done radio before. I know you've been to many radio stations. You've been an A&R to artists and whatnot, but you yourself haven't been behind the mic ever. And that surprises me because you're so good and articulate at speaking.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. So even if I know radio is kind of not as what used to be, but podcasting is now the main dookie stain, as we'd say, right? And I think you'd do great at podcast. Have you considered doing a podcast of your own, sir?
I've kicked the idea around, but it's one of those things where you want to do it with someone,
right?
Maybe I'm a little more articulate because I have to talk my ideas into reality most of the time. It's like I'm always presenting some crazy idea, and by about the 10th or 11th time, if no one's like really clicking with it, then I usually abandon it and move on to the next thing. But I always find myself, I'm always having to just really like hype people up around an idea. For instance, the song feeder thing. It's a totally
Let's get into it. What's the song feeder?
Well, Alpha Music Libraries, which you presented here, they serve a very specific purpose in the radio and imaging world. And, basically it's free use licensing,
of course,
or royalty-free blanket licensed music from
original content,
and your quote unquote music libraries, stock music, and, the music business, the stuff that most people would maybe refer to as your beds or your cues, or maybe they are like elevator music or stuff you might hear in a doctor's office. Like, you're not hearing Miley Cyrus in, the hospital waiting room.
But you're hearing Miley Cyrus-esque type music.
You can hear, just slightly a few clicks to the left, like, you know, Wiley Cyrus.
Wiley,
you know, her third cousin. And
Whacking Ball.
Yes, Whacking Ball by Wiley Cyrus. So, you know, as I started working with Source Audio as a consultant, you know, they refer to me as their, you know, VP of Music Label Partnerships, right?
Another title.
I wear it proudly. You know, I looked at the company and I was pretty just blown away that I'd never heard of this company before, and that they were sitting on, you know, essentially 32 million tracks. And that's a lot of music.
That's a lot of server space. That's
a lot of server space. That's a lot of music. And, you know, that was 32 million tracks across 1,600 publishers, right? Or music library owners. And I'm wondering, how have I been doing this music thing for 15 years and I've never heard of this gargantuan that is Source Audio, who will also let me as a record label put my music in a storefront in front of people, similar to, I won't name our competitors because, you know, why do that?
Right.
But, you know, I think one of the things that kind of blew me away was that there was this web of sort of a just commercial turban that sits behind what Source Audio is. There's this thing called Alpha Music Libraries, and Alpha, as we say, supplies imaging radio content for 2,458 radio stations in the United States exclusively.
I didn't even know that.
And, you know, I looked at this and I said, well, what kind of music is it? Can I listen to the music? You know, and they refer to me as the commercial guy, right? Like, I'm the guy that comes from the label world, and, you know, I've worked with artists, and they were in this overall effort. They wanted to make Source Audio and still want to make Source Audio more of an artist focused company and this engine to develop artists. And I'm helping them realize that potential through, you know, really just how to navigate the licensing space, you know, which they're also extremely good at on the library music side of things. But, you know, when you come to artist music and, you know, commercial labels, you've got 5 writers and you've got, you know, a publisher that's involved, maybe multiple publishers.
You got a lot of chefs in the kitchen, that's for sure.
Yeah,
man.
so you've got a very sort of restrictive path to clearance, you know, to put music in a podcast, which ultimately, like, this is the main Dookie stain.
Yeah.
Right?
Hell yeah.
And this being the main Dookie stain of culture right now is restricted in how exciting it can sound, how, you know, accessible this is for artists to tell their story,
right? For
you to be able to play their music and essentially just introduce this contextual sort of story about an artist and then deliver the song to ready ears.
Right. Without all the red tape and bureaucratic label shit in the way, right? It's like you're just presenting them almost kind of like how SoundCloud, not to name competitors, but this isn't a competitor. SoundCloud.
No.
SoundCloud or YouTube, these artists become famous from their just posting up something that goes viral. This is kind of like, I would suspect that Source Audio and Songfeeder now coming into play is kind of going to be like a hybrid of those things, but in a different digital podcast fashion. Is that accurate? Or
well, the fact is, it is a sync license, right? So, you know, the same sort of license, you know, you would be granting to a TV show or to a movie or to an advertisement, right? This would be the same type of license that you would need essentially for a podcast, right? You'd have to clear the master, clear the publishing side, and it's broadcasted. It could be, you know, used across streaming. It could be uploaded to YouTube, for example. There could be video behind it when you decide to take this audio to some other presentation that we don't know what your post-production might be. But what we do want to offer this space is essentially a portal for developing artists or labels who are developing artists that will grant a gratis license or a free license across the master and publishing for, I mean, the worst word in the business, exposure. And I think that our hands are really, you know, from the label perspective, I spoke to Source and I was like, look, you know, the reality of a publisher going and clearing music for something like Sketch-O-Matic's podcast is super, super unlikely, right? They would be looking at this if they were going to actually delegate staff to license a song from a developing artist that they may have signed to their publishing company for your podcast, they'd be operating at a loss.
I got to tell you, man, full disclosure, I've played so many clips of like already known artists on this podcast. Why? because my podcast makes no money. I'm 0.0 money.
Well, keep
coming
doing
in.
it.
Yeah,
Keep doing
and
it.
I just put it out on you. And yeah, I get a little copyright strike, but even YouTube's all, don't worry about it. You're not making any money off this. We'll let you know when you do.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I get the whole licensing thing. I get even though, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, at the scale that we're looking to do this is obviously every day we have thousands of users on Alpha Music Libraries, picking and pulling content from the website. And to date, it's just been really let's search by AI generated tags, right? Or by keyword, exactly what we're looking for as far as a sound effect, a whoosh, maybe a sweeper or a riser or whatever that might be.
Nice.
But there's, now going to be this portal that is called Song Feeder within Alpha Libraries that will showcase seasonally artists that have granted us free use of name, likeness, radio liners, right? Them introducing themselves, maybe their favorite live moment from a show. And then for every song, a little story about how that song came to life and what inspired them to write it. And this is where we feel like there's a huge opportunity for not just having them have to get into the studio and come to see you, which we would love for that to happen, obviously, and many of their labels, or they would. We're trying to create this in the most exportable, back to music export, the most exportable type of content, which isn't too far dissimilar from Amazon for Artists. They had this thing that they discontinued called
Amazon Artists.
Well, Amazon for Artists had a program within it, or a feature called Spotlight and Intros. And Spotlight was where an artist can upload a liner to their profile. And if you asked Alexa, hey, Alexa, play Camryn Quinlan, then an artist spotlight would come in, her photo would appear on, your Echo show. Ooh. And there'd be a 30-second introduction in her voice.
That's dope.
Of who she is.
That's dope. I never even heard of that.
And what makes her want to make music.
Right.
Well, too bad they've discontinued this.
But are you guys going to do that?
We're doing that.
Something like that.
We're doing something very, very close to that. And, a lot of these artists went and recorded these types of liners, right, that aren't even specific to Amazon. So a lot of our teams and people that we know already have these filed away for all these songs. And for their artists already, they've already recorded these liners.
Yeah, they're stashed somewhere.
And because I've worked so closely on the artist side with a lot of these people who are going through the motions and doing every little bit of content that all the DSPs ask you to do, right? I know where there's surplus. I know where there's stuff that can really help sell the artist. And well, if that program's dead, let's go use that stuff.
That's dope.
And let's attach it to the songs we put in Song Feeder so that people can get to know the artist and you can have better content.
Genius, man. And getting access to Song Feeder via Source Audio, Alpha Music Libraries, how is that going to play out to, let's say, the general public?
Well, all you need to do is go to Alpha Music Libraries. Or I believe it's alphalibraries.com.
I think it's Alpha. Hold on, let me pull it up real quick.
I don't even know the domain.
I use it every day and I can't even remember it. So don't feel too bad. I know. I just type in.
It's a long one. It's a long one.
It's oh, for God's sakes, hold on. Yeah, alphamusiclibraries.com.
Alphamusiclibraries.com. Okay.
Yeah.
I was second guessing.
But it's weird because it goes by Alpha Libraries, but then you type it in and it's all alphamusiclibraries.com/home. So it's almost like both names are involved.
Yes.
So the easiest way to remember it is Alpha Libraries. Yeah. But when you type it in, Alpha Music Libraries.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you are a podcaster, if you are, if you're doing anything in broadcast whatsoever,
any casting of any kind,
any casting of any kind, baitcast, simulcast,
telecast,
then go to alphamusiclibraries.com and set up an account, and we would be more than happy to guide you through the process.
And you don't need to be in iHeartRadio or work for a radio station to get access to Song Feeder?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
That's genius.
So on the artist or label side, if this is something that sounds interesting to you, songfeeder.com is the other landing page.
Let's look it up real quick. I want to pull it up. Songfeeder.com.
It may not even be live yet.
It may not even.
This could be
so much of an exclusive.
You're very early.
I'm telling you. Songfeeder.com. Here we go. Oh, nope, it's not. It's
not yet.
Not
Check
yet.
back soon.
So it's
edit
coming
this
though.
Out. Yeah.
No, it's all good. Well, it's going to be dope. I was really excited to hear about this concept and some of the tracks you sent me. I know you sent me a track. You texted me a track right before you got here, And that was, let me just pull it up on my phone just to, because we can talk about it a little bit. Oh, here it is. Equal Songs, Camryn Quinlan, Hourglass and Light of Day, Masters and Radio / promo? Liners. Got it. Can we play a piece of it?
Yes.
Okay,
you
so
can. This is early song feeder. This is off platform, but here I'm hand delivering you free licensed music to literally just get it everywhere and anywhere that you can. Camryn is, the first signing of Equal Songs.
This is a Sketcho Show podcast music exclusive from Song Feeder. Check it out.
It starts to hit me while we're driving. We were talking about our future plans. You're so excited for next August, but I know that's where the fun will end. Sneaking out to say goodnight. Don't think we've had a single fight. The thought of leaving makes my stomach drop. I see us like an hourglass. Now that all these months have passed, can't push out what I knew would give a shot. And you'll lie and say that this won't have to stop. But if we're being honest, you'll be leaving soon for college. And I'm hiding 'cause I know what that's about. And we'll be here together, but we won't be here forever. So I'll love you till the time runs out.
Camryn Quinlan. I like the name. Where's she from? What's she about? Talk to me.
So Camryn is from Sayville, New York, or Long Island, around that area. She's 17 years old.
Crazy.
Still in high school.
Unreal.
I finally had the chance to see Camryn live in Nashville. Nashville has school night. In LA, we have this school night.
What is school night, just for those who may not be totally familiar?
School night is a once a month, Monday night sort of showcase of breaking emerging artists, where typically you've got probably an industry plug if you're going to get on the bill.
Yeah.
But presented by KCRW, and it's just a very, very great place to see emerging artists. And for years, I guess it's been at Bardot here in LA.
That's all. And now it's in Nashville.
And
it's also presented by KCRW out there?
Yeah.
Holy moly. And we're talking about KCRW 89.9, right?
That's correct.
That's right. With Jason Bentley. Is he still there?
I don't know, but I think maybe is there a Chris Doritas vibe going on?
Something like that.
Or Chris Doritas is maybe involved.
Right.
But the venue is amazing. It's I can't even remember the name of it's in a hotel venue.
It's all good. It's somewhere out there.
One of the best venues.
School night.
School night in Nashville. I flew out to see Camryn. I just signed her and could not wait to meet her and her family.
I think it's just dope when A&Rs go, I just signed her. That shit's fucking dope.
It feels great.
How awesome was it to sign her, and how did she react, Camryn?
Well, I think she reacted pretty great. I mean, we debuted Camryn. So, I mean, we're in the world of labels, I guess, like chasing artists that maybe ended up on a playlist already, or maybe they're having a viral moment on TikTok. There's, A&Rs from Atlantic and, Warner's sliding in the DMs, pretending they really like your music. I don't even think these guys use email anymore. I think they just have what they call a meddling account.
Yeah, they have a DM meddling account.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Or they just go on. They have a department for that.
Yeah, there's $30,000 a year is going into like, what's over indexing right now? And maybe I should sign that because it's popping off on TikTok. And this is what A&R has been reduced to. And those aren't A&R guys. Those are licensors. And so Camryn, we were sent a live video of Camryn playing at the Rockwood Music Hall in New York. And there she was on the piano. And she was playing a song of hers called Xbox. And
great name.
Xbox is about the things that you leave in the corner of your room, from your ex, basically. Everyone has an Xbox.
Xbox. Come on. What a great play on words.
Exactly.
Holy crap.
And her voice is just like incredible. And, well, she's managed by a longtime friend of my business partners who also manages his brother. These brothers, the Scarbeck brothers. Sasha wrote Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus and You're Beautiful by James Blunt.
That's right. I remember you talked about that yesterday. Yeah, man.
Stefan is, he's worked with Amy Winehouse on her debut album, Frank, as well as like the Spice Girls and Madison Beer. And so the two brothers obviously have a lot of industry people around them. And the managers are these guys, Anthony Liberatore and Michael Dixon.
Yeah.
And these guys came across Camryn through family friends of theirs in New York. And they sent me this live video. And I said, we were kind of planning on signing a few things this year, but I think this is the one. I think that, I think we should just double down all of our efforts, like blinders on,
and just go.
I think this girl really, really has everything that it takes. And when those things I think from an A&R perspective, when they really just click for you, that nothing short of performing that way as an A&R and as a team is going to make that possible for that artist.
The stars align for Camryn Quinlan and you and your crew, right? And you suspect that Camryn, it sounds like she's multi-talented at instruments. She plays just
guitar,
the
piano.
So she's like kind of Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo talented that way, right? She's only 17 right now. What's 21-year-old Camryn Quinlan going to look like?
It's going to be pretty ridiculous, I think. We're already getting interest for Camryn across the pond in the UK. Today we spoke with SJM Concerts in the UK who, book everything from Royal Albert Hall to...
Well, they're like, this Camryn Quinlan, mate.
They found Camryn on Fresh Finds on Spotify. Our debut for Camryn.
Fresh Finds.
Fresh Finds.
Talk about Fresh Finds real quick. Is that still happening?
That's still happening.
Okay.
That's still happening.
Break it down, just as a sidebar.
So Fresh Finds is a very coveted sort of like group of editorial playlists that you can end up on, on Spotify. Typically, you pitch for something like this, or you have a distributor who's pitching for you, or your label is. And then sometimes it's like just pure music discovery, from the editorial team. I will say that Spotify does have still a very active and curious editorial team, and they are constantly looking for things. And with Camryn's debut, Hourglass, the song came out, we didn't get any editorial on the first Friday, which everyone's sitting there biting their nails, hoping you get Music Friday.
Right.
And, we always try to like set expectations really low, for that first Friday, because sometimes it can take time. And we waited about a week and a half on that song. And then Hourglass ended up in the number 5 position of Fresh Finds Pop.
Right.
And if you've been pitching music for quite some time, whether you're working on the commercial team at a major indie label, or you're just managing an independent artist, being that high up on a debut single release in position 5 of, I think there's maybe 50 songs on Fresh Finds Pop. For a debut, that's kind of unheard of. And it was pretty clear to me at that point, like I didn't push it too hard because Camryn doesn't have a huge story yet behind her, right? She doesn't have a ton of podcasters playing her music across all of these.
I'm the first, right?
Well, you're the first.
Am I the first?
I think you are the first. Yeah.
Camryn
you are.
Quinlan, this is just for you. This podcast is exclusive just for you. I was excited to talk about her. I was. I read the whole thing. I was like, okay, if there's one artist we're going to talk about, it's going to be Camryn, just because of the fact that she's still in high school and she's already making this much noise.
She's the only artist you can get me to talk about.
Unbelievable. I mean, that's so fantastic. Do you want to finish that thought? Because I have a couple of things I wanted to get to. Just about what is it? The Fresh Finds you were saying. Well,
yeah, the Fresh Finds. It's very hard to get on. We were really surprised that Camryn ended up there as early as she did, and it's pretty crazy the amount of industry around the world that show up when a song ends up on Fresh Finds. And, they quickly evaluate where Camryn is in her career and they want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So Camryn at 21, multinational, all over the place.
Opening up for one of these bigger artists, maybe like Sabrina possibly, or what do you think? Do you think that trajectory is feasible?
She's a really big fan of Casey Musgraves.
Oh, yes.
And if I'm gonna give anyone a shout out,
yes,
Casey.
Come on now,
Camryn
Spacey Casey
tour.
on Instagram. Let's go. I follow her. I just got hip to Musgraves. She has the voice of an angel. And I saw this thing on Apple TV Plus that had her like an intimate concert, and I was like,
She's
man,
incredible,
it's
dude.
just
She's awesome.
It's like she's from Earth. She's one of ours. This is insane.
From Earth, but spacey.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Okay. Total sidebar. I didn't offer you something to drink before we got in. Are you thirsty? Would you like some water? Would you like a Celsius or anything? Beverage?
A Celsius.
Yeah, you want a Celsius?
I'll have a Celsius.
You want to take a walk down to the mini AM PM with me? We'll just pause this and come right back. Okay, cool. All right. So you got your Red Bull,
I got my
and I
Red
got
Bull.
my Smart Water. I'm a little parched, so let me take a quick swig. Okay. Now we're back. And I'm glad because we had to come out of a commercial break for that. Just kidding. I have no sponsors, see? Okay, so back to the conversation about the Spotify Fresh Finds, and one more question about whole New Music Fridays versus when music and albums used to come out on Tuesdays.
Super Tuesday.
Right?
Yeah.
What happened to that? We'll get to that in a second, but that's the two-parter question. So first, I wanted to ask you, can you reiterate what you told me on Zoom about the creation of Spotify, that the guy that you knew when you heard it? Is that okay? Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Because it's such a great story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, please, indulge me.
So, years ago, this would have been probably 2011.
Yeah.
2010. And so this is, Spotify was created, I think, in 2008.
Right.
So these were early days for Spotify. A band that I was tour managing at the time called Black Pistol Fire.
Mm-hmm.
We referred to them as the poor man's Black Keys.
I like the name Black Pistol Fire.
Black Pistol Fire. Really, really cool band, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean what I say about poor man's Black Keys. They were way better.
Can I hit a clip of that real quick?
Dude,
Do you have
I can't clear that.
Okay. All right, all right.
Unfortunately,
That's all good.
but I could hit them up and I could probably clear it.
All right. Well, if it happens by the time this weekend of this podcast is being published, it's probably going to be out on Saturday. Let me know. If not, then we'll just leave this part in and be like, well, we didn't clear it. Another thing for you to clear.
But yeah, these were the days where we were in Austin, Texas. The band was from Canada. Again, another band that I had to get a visa for.
Yeah.
And I was trying my hand at booking a tour for the band.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be a website called indieonthemove.com. You'd call up venues, cold call them.
Wow.
So that was where I kind of started in booking shows, was just cold calling bar managers and, hey, I've got this band, Black Pistol Fire.
Trying to pitch them.
Jim Diamond, who produced the first two White Stripes albums, saw them at the Hole in the Wall, and would you like to book them for a door deal? We don't care. Whatever can get the band into the club on a Tuesday night or a Monday night, the off days.
Right. Middle of the week.
Yeah, when you're trying to connect a tour, that's incredibly hard, right? Especially on those off days in the week, and you're in like Amarillo, Texas or something. And then you have the occasional private gig. And we did enough touring around Texas and in that region to where apparently we caught the ears of a young couple who were getting married, and they had this dream of having a music festival in their backyard for their wedding with their favorite food trucks.
Damn, that's dope.
And yeah, so we got the call, and it was, hey, can you come down to Houston and headline our wedding? And we've got, like an SL100 in our backyard. And we're like, what? Like, this is crazy. If I ever get married, this is how I'm doing it. Like
an SL in the yard.
Exactly. I'm thinking, I'm like, this guy or this girl, I don't know who, one of the two said SL in the yard and the other one caved, or they were like both awesome.
That's so dope.
We go down to Houston, and the band's playing the wedding. It's a well-paid gig. We're hanging out with the wedding party, and it's just all friends and love and everything. And this guy walks up in a like tuxedo shorts suit, pretty blasted, honestly. And he's got a business card in his hand, and he's like, hey man, like, I'm working for this company, and we're gonna like change music forever, and it's called Spotify. And I'm kind of looking at him like, hey, dude, could you like move?
Yeah. Can you back up
like,
a few feet?
Could you back up a few feet, right? And he's like, nah, man, like, here, take my card.
Was this Patrick Mahomes?
I mean, this guy looked, he was
that gravelly voice, huh?
he was pretty, he was sending it,
Right.
and we yeah, we chatted. He was obviously the most illustrious of all the fans that evening, and I kept the guy's business card. And years later, I get asked, "Hey, do you know how we could get on New Music Friday?" And at the time, I was working for a label on the Isle of Wight in England, off the coast of England, and there was a particular artist called Fionn Reagan, who's an Irish singer-songwriter. And I go, you know what? I think I met a guy. And this is 2017. So like many years had passed.
Right. And Spotify is already kind of a thing now, right?
Spotify is already a thing.
Right,
The artists and the labels are now thinking like, oh gosh, we got to get New Music Friday. And, I hadn't necessarily been asked to go get New Music Friday yet. 2017 was probably around the time that New Music Friday turned into, a habit forming drug.
From New Music Tuesday.
They changed release dates. I don't want to be quoted on this, but maybe it was like 2015 or something.
Really?
God,
it's been that long? I felt like I just started hearing of, I would say within the last couple of years, how people are like New Music Friday, and I'm all, what happened to Tuesday? I just remember all the albums coming out, though. I remember going to Tower Records at midnight on a Monday night, Tuesday morning, just to get the new Gang Starr album.
There you go.
Yeah, man. So why did it change? Why did it switch over to Fridays from Tuesdays?
Somebody signaled this. I don't know if it had anything to do... Well, I think it had everything to do probably with DSPs, namely Spotify.
Digital streaming platforms.
Yeah, and it's like New Music Friday or the release date Friday. I'm not really sure which came first.
It just switched somewhere around.
This is a chicken or the egg kind of thing. I'd really love to know.
Same.
But I too came from, the days when, yes, you would drop a street date, right?
Yeah.
The word street date alone.
Yeah.
It's like, what, music in these streets?
It was big.
Not in your AirPods?
It was like an event.
It was an event.
It was like people would gather outside at like 11:30 at night of record stores like the Warehouse or Tower Records or what have you, and I would stay there, and it was like this electricity in the air of hip hop or rock or the new Green Day album or the new Crystal Method album.
Or you might not get one.
You might not get one. And sometimes the artist would be there signing copies.
What?
Oh my God. What happened to that? Oh, that's right. Digital came out.
Dude, who cares though? You can just follow them now. Isn't that the same?
That's true. And if they follow you back, that's like a whole different level.
Oh my God.
Which never happens. But okay, real quick. The Spotify name though, can you just reiterate how your reaction to the Spotify name when you first heard it?
Well, I thought that the name was like really silly.
Yeah.
I think I was like, what is this nerd exploitive?
Yeah.
What is this?
And why did they name it Spotify of all names? Was it named after like a dog or what?
I don't know. I don't know that much about the initial branding conversations. Right. Of in my career, I kind of like. I started trending when the playlist started trending because I had every intent to figure it out. And, that led a very, very like crazy rocky path of like being the next like track promoter. And, that on that instance of being asked, can you get us on New Music Friday? I'm like, I think I got that guy's card. Like, let me go look and
you hit him up and then I
looked at the card. It was like Junior Artist Services. And then I go and I like Google his name again, and I won't mention his name for his own sake, but it was then like Global Head of Artist and Industry Partnerships. I'm like, whoa, that guy climbed the ladder. Whoa, he's probably the guy to talk to. Global Head of Artist and Industry. What can't that guy do?
I know,
right? So I hit him up. I'm like, dude, do you remember me? And he's like, yeah, of course I remember you. You know what I mean? I'm still sending it. And he's like. No,
you still have my card.
You still have my card, man. Like, whoa, dude, this is love.
That is incredible, dude.
And so he introduced me to the editorial teams that were appropriate for Fionn Reagan, who's, kind of a left of center electronic experimental folk artist. So that's like that rides indie and that also rides roots and acoustic music.
Wow.
So there's two department heads, right? And they both have a cluster of playlists in a whole ecosystem they each look after. But because it was recognized more as a crossover thing, it's like, let's put these two editors on this for you. And 100 million streams later,
oh my God,
here we are.
Unbelievable.
And, this artist was also the type of artist who refused to post on social media, doesn't own a cell phone. Still to this day.
No cell phone.
No cell phone.
Not even a flip phone?
Not even a flip phone, man.
How do you get anything done without the technology? Because let's admit, Instagram and social media, when you are a podcaster or an artist, is a marketing tool.
Yeah.
Essentially for free.
I will say, I think he is posting nowadays.
He's got to. You have
but
to.
At the time, he was pulling this whole mysterious thing, and he just so happened to be the head of Roots and Acoustics' favorite singer-songwriter. So that was like a lucky just, oh my gosh, he's actually my favorite singer-songwriter. And I'm like, how did I like slip and land in this? Like, this is great.
You know what I think, honestly, because of what you've done, Weston, for the industry, for the culture.
The culture.
Right? The culture. What you've done, it's the universe paying you back, man. I feel like those stars align.
It does.
Because you put out so much positive energy and constructive energy to bringing people together, to connecting different worlds overseas and in domestic. And now the universe it wrote you a pass. So, I mean, here, get with the Spotify guy. You're going to think it's kind of whatever now, but in 5 years, it's going to be your a bread and butter kind of concept.
I truly believe in those serendipitous moments, and I think you get out what you put in, and that like the whole Spotify thing though, it's like it's changed dramatically, as far as how you get your artist noticed, and
podcasts, bro. Like I got my podcast on Spotify first, bro, and I'll be honest, man, I wasn't into podcasting, dog. Like the only reason that I got into this is because, well, I'm really good at production. The rest of my life outside of production and radio is one giant dumpster fire. Okay. But when it comes to this shit, I'm the bomb, right? But one of my boys who I went to high school with, who I play Xbox with, one day during the pandemic, he was like, Sketch, have you ever listened to Joe Rogan's podcast? I was all, well, I know who he is, but I don't really listen to podcasts because I thought podcasters were trying to be like broadcasters. And then it came to me later after I got the iPhone 13. I'm way behind an iPhone, right? iPhones. But I checked out Joe Rogan's podcast because it came with a bunch of free subscriptions. You don't need subscription for Spotify to listen to podcasts. I didn't know that. But it came with it free. So I was all right, let me see what all the fuss is about. And I listened and I realized then my guy on Xbox, Brandon, was right. I can do this. I'm not saying I can be Joe Rogan. I'm just saying I can hold a conversation and produce it and edit it down in such a way that to publish it and make it presentable and entertaining. But that connection was on Spotify first. And now here we are back on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and iHeartRadio app and YouTube. Yeah. And it's all because, but I'll give the credit where credit's due. It's because of Spotify and Joe Rogan that we're doing this podcast. So there you go.
Thanks, Spotify and Joe Rogan.
Yeah. And then Joe Rogan would be like, it's wild. Right? That's what it's wild.
This is karma.
Hey, Jamie, pull up the Spotify creator. Didn't we meet him? He'll do that.
Here he is doing a keg stand.
Yeah.
Circa 2011.
Man, so, okay, all of these things, with Camryn Quinlan and the artists that are coming on and you're promoting. Oh, this is why I wanted to ask you about Songfeeder. And since we were talking about the creation of Spotify and the name and whatnot, how did Songfeeder become the name and why Songfeeder? It is very self-explanatory, but why did you choose it?
Source Audio's co-founder and CEO, Mr. Andrew Harding. Thank you, Andrew, for all that you do. He came up with the name.
It's a good name, man.
And I like it.
It reminds me of like a bird feeder, or, just the name. Like,
well, I will say there is I think I kind of planted some bird seeds in there because, in the Spotify sort of ecosystem of playlists, right? They have what they call feeder playlists.
Yeah.
Right. So your feeders kind of end up, into your moods or your genre playlist, right? Or you have like, sort of these earlier playlists that you have to kind of like, the song has to perform its way through those without being like, burned too much. So if you can get through all the burns and work yourself through all those feeders and then end up on a mainstay mood playlist where you stay for a much longer period of time, you get a lot more streams, you get a lot more ears.
Interesting.
So I said, well, while this isn't, Songfeeder's not a traditional radio campaign, like we're not doing full track plays of things, like we're offering the music up in sort of a cut down status. If you want to play the full track, like by all means, like please play the full track.
But
we're not an in rotation sort of a pitch here, you know,
Gotcha.
where we're obviously like, speaking specifically to the radio production imaging sort of community and giving them more music so that ideally, if this stuff is circulated, if your podcast is syndicated across multiple, different broadcasters, I don't know who might do that. This is even an area for me that I'm like asking the team, like, if I get you music, can you make it happen? I can clear it. That's it.
Can song feeder music be used in television, like sound design as well?
Specifically for the license that we're granting, no. No. So,
But it's not impossible. It could happen.
Well, we do have a separate product called Amplify, which is, quote unquote, a sync DSP. And, the licensing world for music and TV and film, like, do you produce music as well?
I used to produce electronic breakbeat with my friend, and we had a group called the Barking Spiders. This is the age of like when Daft Punk and the Crystal Method and the Prodigy were real big in the early 2000s and whatnot. That's what we were doing, but we don't do it anymore. But yeah, I used to produce it.
Let's say you were the Prodigy. And you weren't Liam Howlett Huge.
I was Keith with the hair.
Yeah, Keith with the hair, right? Let's say you had you were a breaking artist, you're a new band, but you have multiple writers. Maybe Keith has done a pub deal, you haven't done a pub deal, and that publisher now is the one who has to clear, the composition side of the music on behalf of Keith. You, Liam, are like, mate, I still clear my own. I didn't get a pub deal, so I clear the composition. And what about the master recording? Well, the label signed that.
It's bollocks, mate.
So the labels got to sign the master recording side. So you got 1, 2, 3 parties here.
Yeah.
Right. So that is the full pie of the repertoire and who represents it. Right. So typically, in what we call sync, right, and placing music in TV and film, you would have an agent that goes and clears all those different sides of the music, clear the publishing side so that a TV commercial, a trailer for a game, whatever it might be, can use that song.
That's dope. See, now I imagine that happening with Song Feeder, even more than the television or movie film design, sound design. It would be more in video games because they use a lot of original. I hear so much original content. Maybe it's not totally original, but they're actually artists, like Icelandic artists.
Dude, speaking of Icelandic artists.
Go ahead.
Well, Camryn Quinlan actually produced by an Icelandic producer.
Oh, yeah.
And she has the full support of Iceland Music Export, which my global music export exchange, we're working with Iceland Music. So every country has a music export office, right? And Iceland, has so much creativity.
What's up with Iceland? Have you been there? When was the last time you were there?
I have not been there. And this weekend actually is their Iceland Airwaves. Their version of South by Southwest in the coldest and rainiest and darkest time of year for them, apparently, which is awesome.
And the party's just cracking.
I'm like, dude, like what a great time to have a festival when it's just like horrible outside.
You were telling me about how you are friends with DJ Reflex, right?
Mr. Anthony.
Yeah, Mr. Anthony.
Mr. Reflex.
Mr. Reflex, who I worked with at Power 106 for quite a long time. I remember he was on the Flavor Unit originally, and then he blew up and DJ'd, and now he's all over the place.
He's the Apple Music man.
Yeah, man. I remember Reflex, he had to go DJ in Iceland one time.
Oh, really?
And I was like, wow, what's that like? Because this is like one of the first DJs I knew to even go over there. Not just internationally traveling, but to a country like Iceland that you don't normally hear too much about on an average.
400,000 people.
I know, right? Is it a big place?
It's a pretty big place.
It's an island, right?
It is an island. Right. It is an island.
It's above Canada? Or is it next to Canada?
Oh, don't ask me that.
Geographically, I think it's next to Canada. Like, I think to the right.
I think it's off. I think it is off to the right.
Yeah.
I think. Again, it's always in that extra little zoomed in part of the map.
Yeah, man.
It's like, oh yeah. Also, not pictured is Iceland in its own little square over here,
right?
Because it's just not really fitting into the way that we laid this out.
Yeah.
But it's over there.
It's over there. It's there, and I think Trump even wanted to buy it or something.
I think he wants it as like his doomsday bunker. I think when if we ever have a pandemic again,
right.
That's probably where you would want to go.
Yeah, I think COVID never even touched Iceland.
I don't think so.
It's too cold.
I don't think so. They're pretty perfect over there. Like if you look at them, you're like, gosh, you guys are just you're eating.
What's up with the the females over there? I'm not sure if you have a significant other, but how are the ladies up there?
I don't, and I'd be glad to speak on them. I may have a little crush over there.
Really?
But she'll have to listen to this podcast and find out. She knows who she is.
Another Sketcho Show crush. Weston exclusive. Wow. Okay. Now back to the Iceland and the music, the partying that you were saying.
Yeah.
That's happening. What's it called again?
Iceland Airwaves.
Iceland Airwaves, which sounds like a radio thing. Their version of South by Southwest.
It's for developing new artists and from Iceland. And you've got, I think, in the neighborhood of probably like 80, maybe 100 bands like playing at any given time. And again, like I'm maybe throwing out the wrong numbers here, but it's across several different clubs and like a very like walkable kind of area.
Right. It's almost like Cannes Film Festival, but for artists.
I was gonna go and something or other didn't work out, but I also work for Clash Magazine, which is a UK publication.
Another title.
So I was going to go and bring Clash out to Iceland Airwaves, and their government is really, really cool about funding just the exposure for Iceland tourism through music. And unfortunately, we're a little too late to have made it happen, but hopefully next year.
Outside of all the work stuff you do and trying to find time for yourself, man, how do you decompress from all the titles you hold?
I would say I love to cook. That's my I talk all day long.
Yeah.
I'm on the phone probably 6 hours a day combined. I usually tell people I wish I had a word count of how many
words you say. There should be an app for that.
There should be an app for that.
There should be, like, you spoke 8 million words in 6 hours.
Yeah, you are a chatty Cathy officially. I was like, yeah, so cooking is probably where I turn it all off.
You disengage.
I disengage. I kind of black out and I just make great food. I'm from Louisiana and we're known for our cuisine and I like sharing where I'm from and my the culture where I'm from with other people. So
was cooking was that possibly like one of your career paths that you may have gone down if music hadn't found you?
It was, and
you can still do both.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Do it now.
My first job was, I was a crawfisherman.
Wow.
In Louisiana.
Yet another totally different title.
That was a high school job. I had to save up my money.
You were busting your ass on a boat.
Yeah.
God damn.
Busting my ass.
It's like Deadliest Catch, except without
it's like on the bank of a bayou. It's way less like, you definitely don't have like big ship masts moving around. It's like this
smaller
is like,
boats.
You're like in your old beat up truck, like going trap to trap along the bayou and collecting these
crazy.
These native things that grow in your backyard.
Did you ever find anything or come across anything crazy or paranormal or, experience some crazy out of body thing while out there on the bayou?
Snakes.
Water snakes?
Snakes, water moccasins.
Those are
the worst.
Snakes in the water just seem so unfair, bro.
No, dude, it's not cool.
It's not cool, man.
Cool. Like I didn't want to do that, but that is obviously a big delicacy of where I'm from.
Right.
So food was, if it wasn't going to be music, it was kind of like, well, I guess I'm just going to work on the crawfish farm. Fast forward, I worked at a ton of restaurants on my way up in the music industry in the kitchens. And look, cooking and making music are very, very like closely akin to one another. You're cooking up artists and, I also make music and
you produce.
Love to be produce.
And you're proficient in Pro Tools, you told me?
Pro Tools, Ableton, Logic.
A lot of people have told me, Sketch, I think you were born into this for a reason. And I'm like, if I'm that good at it, then why is it that I'm so miserable most of my days? I mean, I'm like Stern. I'm just miserable. But then when I get behind the computer or behind the board here for the podcast or I'm editing, I'm in my zone.
Everything goes away.
Yeah. Do you ever have to endure those kind of things like I do? Because you are a creative person. You are very well articulated and very well spoken and very calm. But do you have any of those demons?
Dude,
depression?
I do.
Yeah?
Of course, I've got.
How do you deal with them, bro? But the cooking,
cooking is a really great departure from that. Mm-hmm. But I don't always deal with them. You know what I mean? They sometimes rear their ugly head,
right.
And it's like we're all human.
Yeah.
I think mainly through just having really good friends and people who, just reflect back at you like what you put out.
Right.
And
you got a good crew around you, bro.
I got a great crew and an amazing business partner, coworkers, just everybody around me. I'm just really blessed to have really great people in my life. And, and it doesn't always like that.
Bro, I mean, you really got your shit together, man. I'm just impressed by just you, Weston.
Thanks, man. And likewise.
Thank you, man. Likewise. And I know that we don't know each other, and it's been,
but we're gonna,
man. This is going to be an ongoing a friendship and working relationship, and overall just two homies connecting, and through Steve Wall and Doug Reed and Alpha,
the legends.
That Alpha Music Libraries essentially made this happen, this connection happen. Now, I'd like to ask, is it possible to bring Camryn Quinlan on this podcast?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Do you think she'd be into it?
She would so be into it.
Obviously, I'd love for you to be here as well so that she doesn't feel uncomfortable.
I mean, we can bring Camryn, we can bring Amy, her mom.
Oh, yeah.
Anthony and Mike, the managers. Dude, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty
big... We can bring Reflex up here, the other Anthony.
Dude, get Reflex up in here, man.
I made a drop for him that I think he still uses. It goes, DJ Reflex, which was my ex-girlfriend, and I made her sound like a robot fembot.
Oh, really?
And I made that drop for him. I think he still uses it. If not, I don't blame him. It's been many, many years. It was one of those drops, DJ drops, that became a staple at Power. And then I made one for DJ E-Man, same girl, my ex-girlfriend, who did the voice. And now people still hit me up. This was like over 10 years ago, probably longer. And still to this day, people are like, that drop you made for Reflex with the girl? Robot, can you do one like that for me? And I'm like, man, I don't make drops anymore. And I'm like, I'd have to ask my ex-girlfriend. I don't know if it's going to work out.
She's married now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. She's moved on.
Yeah,
she's moved on from the voiceover world. But, we just crossed over an hour, and sometimes I'll go for like a full 2 or 3 hours. Sometimes I'll go full Joe Rogan lengths. But I don't want to go too long.
I don't have anywhere I'm in a rush to be.
Okay.
Look, there's a lot of really cool stuff coming musically, for Camryn and then for other artists as well.
Yeah.
And, between us, right? Like, podcast off or on, who cares? But yeah, we've got some pretty exciting records from, this girl named Amy, which is pretty...
Not Camryn's mom.
Not Camryn's mom.
Different Amy.
Not Camryn's mom. So we got...
we're talking about...
yeah.
I thought this was a different Amy. A totally different Amy.
No.
I was like, oh, wow, there's another Amy. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, right? Amy.
So I think the world, so this is kind of like this record where, Stefan, my partner, and I, we found these demos that he had done, years and years ago. And
you unearthed some demos.
Some demos. And it was like, we have to produce the record.
And this is younger Amy, correct?
This is like 17. Yeah.
This should be on HBO Max, for God's sakes.
I mean,
this is insane. This is like next level, bro. I hope to God when this happens, you come back and we drop an exclusive.
I'll bring Stefan.
Yes.
And we will.
Let's do that.
And we have, some really interesting, fun, cool, her and her happiest moments outtakes.
That sounds so
And when we turn the recorder off, I'll play you a little bit. But
for those listening that don't know which Amy we're talking about, her last name rhymes with grind blouse.
Okay. Grind blouse.
Grind blouse. Grind blouse.
Yeah. Amy Grind blouse.
That's crazy. Is there anything that we left out? Oh, one thing I wanted to ask you about the song feeder and some of these artists. Is there any, and I told this to Steve Wall, is there any EDM artists?
Absolutely. So there's an EDM artist who is in town right now.
Yeah.
And what is this coming out Saturday?
Yeah.
Do you want some?
Yeah. You got something we can drop real quick? A little exclusive?
So I want to give a shout out to Jaded from London.
Jaden from London, mate.
Jaded.
Oh, Jaded. My bad. Jaded.
So Jaded fam from London, Mr. Nari and Mr. Teo.
Okay.
They're in town doing some writing sessions at the moment, and super, super, super hip, house.
Can we play a clip, or haven't cleared it yet? Haven't cleared it.
I'll clear it tomorrow.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right, let's drop some.
Yes, we can.
What do you think? What do you got? What do you got for me?
What are we going to call
Yeah, pull up that phone. Let's see.
What is the...
He's flipping through the phone.
I actually already talked to Nari about this. So they're staying with me at the moment.
Oh, nice. Nothing like artists staying at your house.
Oh my God, dude. They're pretty respectful.
Yeah, well, they're from London. I mean, not that they can't while out, but most people from London are pretty respectful and civilized that I've met.
They've got manners.
Yeah, they got manners, mate.
Yeah.
You Americans get wild out too much.
Yeah.
Can you do a bit of a British accent?
I could do British accent.
Yeah. Weston sounds a bit British.
I've got a little bit of a British accent. I lived in London for 3 years.
Whoa!
In Chelsea. World's End, mate.
The Chelsea smile. You know about the Chelsea smile?
I know about the Chelsea smile.
Yeah, that's a rough one, right? Do they still do the Chelsea smile out there at the football games?
They do all sorts of shit. It's Chelsea is pretty like, I don't even know how much I can say. It's a big crowd. Man. It's a big crowd.
Nobody's
in Chelsea.
Listening. It's just me and you.
It's a big crowd in Chelsea.
Yeah.
I lived for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I lived, just opposite Stamford Bridge where Chelsea plays, just, a couple of blocks.
You could walk there.
I could walk there. Yeah.
That's so dope.
Season ticket holder, and would go with all these like old pensioners and old men and
just while out in the crowd. Their crowds are so energetic, man.
Oh, dude, it's nuts.
They're all like doing chants the whole time.
And don't go to the
Manchester.
I mean, I've been to Manchester as well, but in Chelsea though, it's like do not go to the visitors' restroom if they're losing, right? Because you'll go in there to have a slash, right?
A bit of a slash, man.
A bit of a slash, mate.
Just a bit of a slash.
Just need a slash, mate. Gonna go in there, and you can't bring drinks into the actual arena, right? You have to pound them out in the breezeways.
Or buy them inside.
No,
they don't sell alcohol inside?
No drinking once you
Why? Because people get wild out.
Dude, they're British,
Those British folks.
If the British had guns, they'd all be dead. Like... These guys are so drunk.
We're doing a bit of a drive-by, mate.
Yeah. Just a drive-by. Oh, isn't it funny? Oh, yeah.
I shot that wanker in the fucking leg,
I bust the cap in the fucking, yeah.
We're doing it a bit LA style.
Yeah, LA, baby. Cali does the drive-by. Yeah.
Oh, my God. All right, what do you got for me, bro? What do you got for me?
So Jaded.
Oh, yeah, Jaded. Here we go.
We would go, welcome to the people.
Okay, welcome to the people. Sketcho Show podcast, Jaded exclusive.
Lift me up and I get high. Lift me up and I get high. Lift me up and I get higher. Lift me up and I get higher. On my feet, oh my God. Oh, you're pushing me, my God. On my feet, oh my God. Oh, you're pushing me, my God. Anybody here ready to?
Jaded, I come from the electronic world a bit. Mm-hmm. Like I was working for this company called The Nations, like Trap Nation and House Nation. Mm-hmm. I did that for a few years. Really learned a lot about just remix culture and, as we in the record business call it, derivative works. So I learned a little bit about that world. Mm-hmm. I was doing like commercial partnerships for The Nations, mm-hmm. Which is like, kind of the suit job of that very fun organization. And knew enough names to drop to, kind of get myself in trouble backstage at a electronic concert, Yeah. Oh, cool. Like you did that, whatever. I found myself at a writing camp, mm-hmm. actually in Pioneer Town near Joshua Tree, out in the Des. Uh-huh. And there's this place called Escape, where a dear friend of Nari from Jaded and I, his name's Rocco, mm-hmm. Rocco has this 140-acre compound with 3 studios and a helipad, and
What?
you go out there and it's like, oh cool, like Paul Rogers from Bad Company is just over there playing guitar on the
Just riffing.
yeah, he's over on the balcony over there, just, feeling like making love. And then you've got Billy Gibbons, over there.
No
just
way.
hanging out with Diplo, and they're going on a dirt bike ride. And Johnny Depp's like, just leaving, shooting a Sauvage commercial.
Oh,
and you're like,
smoking 800 cigarettes.
yeah. And like, I found my way out to a writing camp out at Escape. And, honestly, it's probably one of the most super just like artist escapism kind of places ever. Like Rocco and his lovely wife Christina, they do that. They are in this for the love of it, and it is a private studio. You can rent it and that kind of a thing. But Rocco has a group of friends where he brings out his favorite sort of like developing artists from all of his travels around the world. And Rocco, I was lucky enough to be brought out with Nari from Jaded and several other artists. And that's where he and I connected. And
here we are.
He's staying at my house right now, like back in LA months later, almost a year later. And, we have this little thing called the Extraordinary Life Alliance that, we all just sort of like follow this like kinship worldview, which is like this, this book that Rocco has been, so gracious to share with us out in the desert. And when we make friends there, they're lifelong friends, and we make music together, and we make just cool stuff happen. So
I want to go to the Des. I want to escape.
You got it. Yeah, dude. The Escape is amazing.
Johnny Depp. I was Team Depp all whole time, bro.
It's wild, dude. It's like, if you know Pappy and Harriet's, it's like right there by Pappy and Harriet's. And again, Nari and I, it's like you're saying, hey, do you got any great EDM for Song Feeder?
Yeah, I want to play some EDM on this podcast from Song Feeder. I want to break an exclusive EDM artist that hasn't been played too many places, other places. I want to do that here. I really like Tiesto. I love the Calvin Harris's. I love the Ellie Gold. I love that hard shit too, like that Skrillex type shit.
Oh yeah,
man.
Yeah.
I love that real like synthetic sounding EDM that sounds like the computers are like fighting or having sex with each other.
The robots banging.
Yeah. I love that. I want to. Yeah. Fuck. I wish dubstep came back. I really do, man.
Dude, it's crazy. Have you ever heard of funk?
No, what's that?
So funk is funk. PHONK.
Funk.
It's the most viral genre on Spotify.
What is it?
It is, and most viral really on TikTok. It's basically like this Brazilian meets Eastern European, Russian sort of like hard style electronic. It's all like overdriven.
Yeah.
It's based on 90s Memphis rap also.
Whoa.
And that like Fast and the Furious, like do 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 do. That sample?
Yeah.
It's like it's all based on like that one sample and drift racing.
Interesting.
And all these kids in Eastern Europe like all just like got really obsessed with Fast and Furious.
And they play it to like street races, maybe?
They play it to like drift races.
Right, to use it for
and so it goes hand in hand with like, gaming culture.
Yeah.
Energy drinks.
Yeah.
Getting shredded in the
sports
gym.
events.
Sports events.
Right.
Funk is crazy. Like, there'd be like 17-year-old kids who, have racked up 1 billion streams in 6 months on Spotify, who you go to the bio and it's like, I'm like 15 from Ukraine and I make Brazilian Russian funk music, and there's nothing else out there about me that you can find. It's just this hyper culture of this whole other electronic genre.
Funk.
I'm
going to look into this.
It's atrocious.
This is going to take over the EDM world in America, you think?
I think it may be have even come and gone.
I'm late to the game.
I like to tell the story of the artist, and these artists are very like incognito.
Yeah. The underworld artists.
I once did like I don't know if you knew who Annie Nightingale was. She's like,
I know that name.
So she was like the first female DJ, and Annie was like 92. And no, sorry. Annie wasn't 92. Annie was 83. I got introduced to Annie when I was working with the Nations, and she's like, so Weston, I'm really interested in like trap music, and what is this funk? And I'm like, dude, this lady interviewed the Beatles, dude, and she's asking me about funk
and trap,
and
she's 83.
She's 83.
That's like if Biden.
She is, yeah, exactly. She is a beacon of light as a human being. Like,
and
she's
she DJs on turntables or CDJs?
No, she's a radio DJ. She's a radio personality, broadcaster.
So I'm imagining her DJing an event like on the turntable.
She does that as well. She would do that as well. And so Annie, like, little tiny Annie Nightingale, she was like, we ended up having like all these mutual friends from like the old 70s rock world, which is like my world of what I love. And luckily had cool mentors in that space. I ended up meeting Annie, and she's like, I want to know how funk music is like, what are these people like? And I'm like, well, Annie, like,
you got to go to the Escape.
Yeah. Well, there was no funkers at Escape.
Oh, okay.
But the ones that we had signed, to the Nations.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, they don't really want to be known. Like, she's like, well, I want to do a special on BBC Radio 1, and I want to
that's massive over there.
So
too.
So it's like, could we produce the first ever funk
specialty show
special on Radio 1?
And what did the funksters have to say about it?
Well, I brought a few of them out of the woodwork.
Right.
To
you convinced them?
Convinced them to speak and talk to Annie. And like, dude, they're like chewing on, I mean, they're like all Adderalled out, dude. You know what I mean? Like, they're just like, I'm like, like
teeth are grinding like motherfuckers.
Yeah, dude. It's like you ask them a question, and it's just like before you can even get the last word out, they're just like they're already answering you, and you're like, I don't know what they're doing with it, but they're doing something.
But that's where funk was made, in the minds of the Adderall.
The beat's so fast, right? And so like Annie always told me, rest in peace, Annie. Is like, she's like, I've always followed music as the beat changes. Like, I go where the beat goes. That's where my music journalism over the past 60 years, 70 years of my life has taken me. Is like, the one thing that can change, like the bands can change, the culture can change, like the lyrics can change, or could all say the same, actually, sorry.
Right.
But the one thing that changes
is the beat.
Is the
BPM.
Yeah. BPM.
Gotcha.
The tempo is just going up and up and up.
Let me segue into this last question to you, Weston, is aside from the chef Weston, A&R, business operations Weston, why hasn't Weston gotten into the DJ world yourself? Because Weston McGowen is a fantastic producer name.
You like? Is it a good handle?
Yeah, it's a great Weston. You're the only Weston I've ever met in my entire life.
Shoot.
Yeah.
I went on a date with a Weston once. She was great.
So it's a girl guy named Weston?
At least with one girl.
Wow.
At least with one girl.
I guess it would work. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I met her at a W hotel, and I was like, dude, this is like, this is WWW right here, dude. Okay, cool. Yeah. I don't know, man.
Why not DJ Weston?
DJ Weston, is this like me making my own beats?
Not really.
Or is this more like
just at the club DJing or an event DJing,
throwing up the the freshest.
Yeah, just the freshest, because not all DJs have to make their own music. I know a lot of DJs that are very famous and they haven't made one record themselves.
I love to sling people's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've been I've been trying to con Pioneer DJ out of like some free decks, but they won't hook it up.
Really?
Dude, I know.
That's bullshit. Come on, Pioneer.
I mean, I've got to come up with the right, kind of like revenue opportunity.
Man, you got this whole new, well, it's not new anymore, but the funk thing, the funkadelic Pioneer situation.
No, I would love to DJ. I really just like playing I like playing music that I'm working on.
Right.
So if you were to come over to my house, I would be playing you like, yo, have you heard like the new Bad Nerves record?
Mm-hmm.
Which is,
oh yeah,
I've got this.
You got the shirt on. Who the fuck is Bad Nerves?
Who the fuck is Bad Nerves?
Who the fuck is Bad Nerves?
Dude, Bad Nerves are from East London. So I was their A&R guy at a label called Lowly, and they're like the Ramones meets Supergrass.
I feel like even if you weren't out at the clubs DJing, you could still be putting out like specialty mixes. You're proficient in Pro Tools, Ableton, Logic. Ableton is great for making mixtapes or, mixes in general. Why not put out a little something for Song Feeder?
Well, because I'm so in that distribution mind.
Right.
Like, I am loving right now, there's, on Apple Music, for example, they have the DJ Mix Supplier program on Apple Music. And similar to how Song Feeder would be going and clearing songs for a podcast, right? Clearing a whole DJ mix in a 1 hour, segment is technically a podcast play, right? But you got to clear all those songs within it. And Apple uses Shazam because they own it to ID the songs.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Wild.
I thought that was a whole separate company.
No, they own Shazam.
Okay.
So
Shazam is a great fucking app.
Amazing.
Oh my God.
But they're actually using it for their own monitoring of songs in podcasts. So
it makes sense.
I do love I think that the future of the kind of streaming world is going to go into podcasts. It is going to go into, you having a licensing framework for where you partner your shows with as Sketchomatic, and you go to Apple and say, cool, everything that I'm doing is kind of a moment in music culture and history, and I'm going to submit to you the songs that I want to play this week. And, I've got liners and IDs from some of the artists, and it's special.
Otherwise known as drops, which we like to say. DJ drops.
DJ drops.
Yeah,
I think the Brits call them liners.
Liners, right. And they call they're not DJs on the radio, they're presenters. Presenters, mate.
See, this is my like my Annie Nightingale, all my vernacular is just backwards.
It's all right, man. You're close.
I'm the American with all the British vernac.
Yeah, but you're within range though, Weston. It's not like you're completely off.
No.
It's all good, bro.
But I think I'm seeing the streaming world, really try to adapt to more long play formats, and it's super dope, dude. All I want to do is I want to hear music or help present music.
But you are, man. You are.
Where people are just talking about who the artist is, why you should care.
All right. Well, man, I got to thank you immensely again for this, man. I haven't done a podcast in about a month or so, and I was trying to get a lot of other people on, and I've gotten declined. I got snubbed.
Who snubbed you?
I don't want to put out names and stuff, but let's just say they're people that work here, and they said yes to me to my face a few times, and then when I ask them, okay, let's lock in a date on the DM or text or email, I get back, I'd rather not, or, it's just the excuses. And I'm just like, okay. And I don't trip, bro. I'm just like, cool. Well, if you change your mind, the invitation is always open. But it hurts, man. It stings. You know what I mean? Because I feel like, is it me? Like, you don't want to be on my podcast? Is my podcast beneath you? Am I going to see you on someone else's podcast? That's going to hurt even more. So, again, you doing this and keeping your word, it means the world to me, man. So thank you.
Sketch, thank you so much for having me. And honestly, I would just love the opportunity anytime.
Yeah.
So
we'll have you back on again, Weston McGowen.
Buddy.
And real quick, any relation to Rose McGowan?
No.
Okay, all right.
No relation.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, do me a favor. Give out your social media handles if that's cool.
Yes. You can follow me at Weston McGowen. That's WestonMcGowen
on IG.
On IG or at Equal Songs.
Oh, I'm gonna follow that. I didn't follow that. Equal Songs on IG.
On IG. And also
you got X and all that?
I don't have X. And then on the Source Audio /Alpha front, I think we're at _Source Audio.
At _Source Audio.
That's correct.
All right, gotcha. All right, Weston McGowen. Once again, appreciate you coming through on the Sketcho Show podcast and dropping all these insights and knowledge and exclusives. Please, whenever you want to come back, we'll have you back on, man.
Thank you, bro.
There it is.
Oh, good for you. And how was it?
The Sketchomatic Show.
Hey, too much information and shit, man.
Shut your mouth, essay.
Okay, bye.
If the British had guns, they'd all be dead. Like, these guys are so drunk.
We're doing a bit of a drive-by, mate.
Yeah. Just a drive-by. Oh, isn't it funny? Oh, yeah.
I shot that wanker in the fucking leg,
I bust
mate.
the cap in the fucking, yeah.